Let's talk about who deserves to rule the empire.
I was just gonna have one rule. Make a deal. Keep it.
Well, technically, I didn't.
There's a reason we don't call our chits in early. Consumer confidence. This isn't Wall Street. This is hell. We have a little something called integrity. This gets out. Who'll deal with us? Nobody. Then where are we?
I don't know.
That's right. You don't. Because you're a stupid, short-sighted little prat.
This is a new sort of video for me, an experiment perhaps. This video is probably not for the audience I've inadvertently cultivated. If you're on the left, you might get some insights, but to you this will potentially feel like I'm splitting hairs. But the short version is, I have a whole bunch of, let's call them unique political philosophies, and I have had a rough time of deciding on a manner in which to express them. But we'll experiment, like a top who feels their butt clench looking at Fuda porn. This was sparked by Innuendo Studios' most recent video, Always a Bigger Fish. I should probably put more distance between the people I respect and the pornography jokes. I agree with a lot of his points, in general, and it's probably a useful framing device for a leftist audience. I encourage you to all go watch it. I wanted to expand on his presentation, however. I have said before on the channel that, generally speaking, I regard myself as on the right, or right of center, from the bird's eye view of politics. I have worked for Republican congressional campaigns in the past. I've been to state conventions and caucuses. We have caucuses in my state, and I prefer it that way, but that's a different video. And despite all the bullshit that has happened over the past 10 years, in my heart, I still think of myself as a Republican. I am watching the 2020 campaign here in the winter of 2019, with its 47 Democrat candidates, as something that is happening to other people. In my gut, in my mind, that still is not my camp. I'm just passing through during the seasonal floods. But when the water recedes, I still fully intend on returning to my homeland to dig out my ruined house and repair or rebuild as necessary. Maybe that won't happen. Maybe the water will never recede. Maybe my home will be too badly damaged to salvage a life there again. But those are my plans at the moment. So the point of this video, in my roundabout way, is that I've wanted to offer a right-thinking person's view of why she supports policy changes like more wealth taxes, public education, free tuition, and single-payer healthcare, among a bunch of other stuff, by zeroing in on this idea of the social strata. Such policies feel at odds with what many think of as conservatism, but I want you to hear me out and see where I'm coming from. So let's zero in on that big argument, that you can't tax the rich out of what they've earned, because they've earned it. I will say right off the bat that I don't mind social elites. Hell, I don't even mind an aristocracy as a concept. To me, what makes the difference is that if that elite is pulling its fucking weight or not. You know, even the Roman Empire had a grain dole to take care of its people, with a police force and a fire department. It wasn't an anarcho-capitalist commune like many people want to push. The elite had a responsibility. A patron of Rome was expected to give money handouts to those who were patronizing him, if they were having a rough time of it, or he'd lose face as being unable to provide for those who served him and voted with his bloc. Rome was certainly unequal, but there was an understood responsibility for those at the top of the pyramid that their indulgence came at the cost of, keeping the poors alive and well. We don't have to go that far back, though. Let's look at the U.S. president easily in my top 3, Teddy Roosevelt. Roosevelt was... It's hard to describe, but patrician best explains his social class in the late 19th century. That class of landholders who were the old money, who hadn't yet had a chance to catch up to the Industrial Revolution and capitalism. We still had a landed class in the States, it just wasn't quite so ingrained into the political system as it was back in Britain. Suffice to say, Roosevelt grew up very privileged, but Roosevelt knew at a young age that he wanted to be involved in policy, in moving great numbers of people toward doing great things. That was his ambition. When his family heard that he was going to become a politician, they were mortified. They had always planned for Teddy to become something more suited to a man of his station, like a doctor or a scientist. Think about that for a moment. These are the richest, whitest, most hoity-toity ponces to ever fuck a pig. And they were angry, shocked, and upset that their child was going to pursue power, and not for the betterment of the whole of mankind, which they saw as their natural duty, their charge for being in that patrician class. Try to imagine Donald Trump telling his children that they should become scientists because their social class has afforded them the opportunity to do something really great and contribute to the sum of human knowledge, rather than all become capitalists, which is only about money. It's almost an SNL skit. Our culture is so antithetical to that mindset that the sheer suggestion that the elites don't go to pursue more money and power sounds like a sarcastic tweet. So I will say this is my big complaint to the modern day. I don't mind elites, but elites who don't even fucking pull their weight, that I cannot abide by. And the data is clear. The elites in Western society today are not pulling their fucking weight at all. If giving money to the wealthy industrial class was supposed to create more jobs and better standards of living, we should be swimming in elevated wages and benefits, but we aren't. Things have stagnated since the 1970s, and there are reams of that data out there. This is my concern as a conservative individual. And fair warning, I'm about to go full right-wing with my power structures, so if you are a leftist who made it this far, maybe duck out now. Thank you so much for watching, like and subscribe, Kappa. Alright, everyone here is okay with me ranting that power structures can be good things. Good, because let me tell you about why the poors deserve what they get. Because if there is anything that being a student of history teaches you, it's that stagnation is weakness and weakness is death. For example, I support the estate tax, or the death tax if you prefer, because the whole point of the system is to prevent a landed gentry gaining a permanent foothold in American society. An ideal society should be a society where you can't just coast on mom and dad buying your way into a college for the rest of your days, and subsequently buying the way for all your grandkids too. Everyone should be forced to prove themselves. That way the best of the very best does indeed rise to the top. Being born wealthy is advantage enough. You don't need more advantage than that. Egalitizing education can sort that. The smart kids, the ones who are every bit as clever or more clever than their parents, or at the very least, those smart enough to get by and know enough social karate to keep their status, those people will be fine. The advantage I see to an estate tax, and wealth tax, and all that other redistribution, is that it will kick the dumb rich kids down the ladder. Natural selection is at its finest if idiots born wealthy are less successful than brilliant people born poor. There are billionaires whose wealth has been studied by economists and determined that they would have more money if they had just spent the last 40 years finger painting while the money sat in a bank. Those people should not still be billionaires. The market should be allowed to chew them up and spit them out, and the only way to do that, honestly, is to make sure their nest egg is small enough that they aren't individually too big to fail. Too big to fail is too big shouldn't just apply to banks, but to individual billionaires as well. But again, the data is pretty clear that this is not happening. And again, the data is very clear that we have been giving the rich more and more of their take over the past 40 years. If their success meant our success, then we should all be swimming in prosperity. Instead, we have people going into work with gout because we've subsidized the most unhealthy foods and leave the blue-collar workers on their own to get health care. So they pop a few aspirin and fight through the pain. That doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help the worker, and it doesn't help the employer, who loses productivity hours. This philosophy also applies to education. A common argument against free, or at least subsidized tuition, is that school shouldn't be free, thinking that free education is a gift to the student. But this framing is wrong. It's just wrong. Education is not for the benefit of students, not even remotely. We try our best, as caring parents and human beings, to make the experience comfortable for young people, but that's not why we do it. Let's remove college from the equation momentarily and only look at K through 12. Why do we educate kids to grade 12 in public school, but not beyond. Not for the child's benefit, it's for yours. It is for that high school diploma. We look at a high school diploma as very basic today, but the reason that Walmart, that gas stations, that canvassing groups all look for diplomas is because the diploma is a guarantee to the society at large. That diploma means that you can read and have basic literacy. That diploma means that Walmart doesn't spend 3 weeks teaching you how to subtract all kinds of different numbers from 20. We have decided as a society that these skills need to be baseline for a majority of our jobs. Education is not for the students, don't kid yourself. We do it because we want to maintain our society and our workforce. This is why elementary education involves very selective lessons on our local history. In the United States, we emphasize the landing at Plymouth and Jamestown. You likely only learned about New Amsterdam if you live in that region. In most of the country, you probably only know about those first 2 English landings on the New World, and then by the time the French and Indian War comes along, we've just sort of coalesced into 13 colonies as if by magic. That isn't on accident. We, as a culture, chose that narrative thread to instill in our children as their united cultural identity. This is a different video entirely, so I'm trying not to get too sidetracked, but George Washington is important because we decided he was important. This is a function of your early schooling, and if your teachers never let you in on that, you were cheated out of a halfway decent education. Bringing this back to college, we, as a society, are in desperate need of a boost. There is currently a massive skill gap in the United States because too few people have degrees. We can deliver a 1-2 punch to the collegiate system by making it publicly funded, by transferring that principle we use for the diploma to the bachelor's degree or under. The first benefit, obviously, is that we can tap all the minds who are locked out of schooling for fiscal reasons. The second is that we can stop the slow descent of a 4-year program feeling like a glorified daycare because students would no longer be customers first, but students first, and able to learn more rather than worry about the return on their investment. Will everyone make it? Probably not, but that's true for the system today. But it doesn't hurt them, and it doesn't hurt us. Even if graduation numbers remained constant, not rates, remember, we're talking about the absolute number of graduates, we'd still be ahead because that frees up our middle class from 20 years of prohibitive student loan debt. And a market economy needs consumers, not debtors. This is a big part of why I find myself in the Antifa Alliance. The system is broken. It needs to be broken up. It needs to be trust-busted because people who do not benefit in the system have nothing keeping them loyal to the system. This is the same rationale you might remember me using on my video on call-out culture. Disenfranchised people are people who have loyalties to whoever can provide them with what they need, be that justice, jobs, safety, or wellness, and those loyalties often do not engender them to be peaceful, quiet neighbors. Neoliberalism has attempted to transition many of those dependencies, justice, jobs, safety, and wellness, onto our employers and not our state or communities like churches. We have slowly put all of our necessities into the hands of employers. There is a slight problem with that model, of course. In modern capitalism, the measure of success is from quarter to quarter. But you can't build a civilization in 3-month plans. They have no investment in longevity or security. Why would they? The only thing that matters is how much higher the margins are in January than they were in October. Corporate infrastructure in 2015 was sitting at an average of 22.3 years. That is, equipment, building, machines required to do business. That's the oldest that infrastructure has been since 1941. You know, after the Great Depression, which fully ended in 1941, we've surpassed that figure after, supposedly, some of the greatest years of growth. But companies aren't even investing that capital in themselves. How can you, as someone who is concerned about the legacy of your civilization, trust these people with justice, jobs, safety, and wellness? You can't. And you certainly can't trust the common folk, because they need to be rolled, of course. This video could probably become 12 hours long if I allow myself to rant at length at all the little nuances of my political philosophy, so I think this is a good spot to wrap it up, as we're starting to stray a little bit from that narrow focus on the concept of the social pyramid. As I said, this has been an experiment. If you're curious in seeing more philosophical videos like this one, feel free to drop it in the comments or ask me specific questions over at my Curious Cat in the description. No plans for the next video. The last couple weeks have been rough over here, so I'm not really sitting on Andromeda scripts, or finished ones anyway, nor anything else in the pipeline, so I'll probably just do something stupid next. I don't know.